On this episode of the Startup Junkies podcast, we're joined by serial entrepreneur and founder of Crestline Leaders, Steve Toth. Steve talks about how he helps enterprises grow by building people, priorities, and processes. This is the Startup Junkies podcast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in however and wherever you're tuning in from. My name is Daniel Koonce, and I'm joined today by my co-host Caleb Talley and Jeff Amerine. Jeff, Caleb, how we doing?
Pretty good. Razorback football season is just around the corner. It's my favorite time of year.
Yeah, we're gearing up. Caleb?
Fall and Razorback season. Razorback country is as good as it gets.
Yeah, the weather's still hot, but
until you know the aspirations for the season.
And then depression.
3-0, and then after that we go 5-7.
And then we start talking about basketball season's just
around the corner.
It's an endless cycle.
Exactly.
Well, we're joined today by our friend. He's a serial entrepreneur, founder of Crestline Leaders, Steve Toth. Steve, how are you doing today?
Hey, great. Thanks.
Yeah, are you getting your hopes as high as we are for Razorback football?
I was drawing a curve recently to help a client understand change management, and we got to the top, which is the peak of excitement, and then it drops off into the valley of despair. I'm like, let's just stay on the peak of excitement. I call it Mount Stupid in my house, but we'll stay there. I love it.
Yeah, no, that's where we are right now for football season for sure.
Very excited.
Well, the way we like to start these episodes, tell our audience a little bit about what it is you do and kind of your entrepreneurial journey. What brought you here today?
Okay. Well, thanks. First off, thanks for inviting me. There's lots of amazing entrepreneurs in Northwest Arkansas, so I'm honored to be here. You guys, is a real blessing. I was talking to Jeff earlier. It's actually my second time to be with you guys. It's been quite a while, almost a decade ago. Part of my journey as well. I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. You know, I used to, as a kid, buy Volkswagen Bugs and rebuild motors because you could rebuild a motor for $150 and flip the car back out. Then I figured out that people would just bring their cars to me and I would rebuild the Bug motors and flip those back out. And so I built speaker arrays that were, quote unquote tuned speaker arrays, which weren't, but they looked cool. Been in and out of W-2 roles as well. Spent a decade as a VP for Honeywell, most recently. Actually brought me to Northwest Arkansas in 2005. Left that organization and founded with a co-founder Tango Press, packaging, corrugated packaging business where Jeff and I met the first time. I think I came in looking for advice, Jeff.
Yeah.
Hey, we need to raise a bunch of money that we don't have and we don't really know how to do it. And so, you set me back on my way to go learn some more and do some more work, do a lean canvas. And I'm sure a bunch of other homework. We exited that business. We did stand it up, raised the capitals, filled it full of customers, and exited that business in 2020. Sold it to our mentors, actually, an organization called the Box Maker out of Seattle. They were going to go east, and it made perfect sense for them to be part of Northwest Arkansas. They're in Lowell now. Amazing. Stuck another 8 or 10 million in the business, and it's beautiful. One of my investor partners in that business, Tango Press, said, "Hey, what are you going to do now?" I said, I might take a minute or two off, but after that, I don't really know. We'll figure it out. He asked me to help him with his business, which started off as a 180-day assignment to resolve a commercial issue that I had with a channel partner. Ended up turning into a 4-year assignment as his interim exec, his president. I ran the business. It's located in Toronto. I ran the business from Northwest Arkansas for almost 4 years. Turned it over in May to turn the crank, real sharp, operations-minded president, and then took a couple more minutes off. I came to visit Jeff sometime late last summer, I think it was.
Sounds right.
You said, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't really know, but having fun. I've got this people and culture strategy that's sort of flapping in the breeze, doesn't have much around it, don't really know what to do with it, other than I really like it. And it fits a lot of places, something that I've developed with friends over the course of the last I'd say 10 years or so. And was at that point in time actually looking for a business to buy. So, a little entrepreneurship through acquisition, a little ETA play. I saw a lot of businesses, but couldn't buy a lot of businesses for lots of different reasons, most of which were centered around the transferability of the business itself. Whether it was owner dependence issues or systems and process issues or finance issues or hosts of reasons. I couldn't buy any of them. I couldn't acquire any of them. So I started helping those entrepreneurs, those business owners, reshape their business into something that probably had a little bit more enterprise value, which is really where I landed on creating all the work that I do is creating around enterprise value. So from that, it made sense to turn it into a practice. I love Crestline. So I'm a Pinnacle guide. Pinnacle is an operating system that I use. A lot of mountain climbing analogies in there. We use a lot of climb language. And the Crestline is the hard line. The Crestline is the one that takes you're in the wind all the time, which in an entrepreneurial journey, it seems rare that I ever would really have good tailwind. A lot of wind in your face, cold wind, hard wind. You got to keep moving or you freeze, kind of wind. So Crestline Leaders came out of that. And been up and running since October as Crestline Leaders and happy to be serving clients. It's fun pulling it together for them.
Who's the ideal client?
Ideal client for me, Jeff, is probably starts at about $5 million in revenue. And although I do have 2 clients that are less than that, I'll tell you how that fits and why $5 million is a number. And they, first off, they recognize that they need help, and they have to recognize that they need help. Last thing I want to do is push an agenda that they don't want. That's just a waste of everybody's time, theirs and mine. Second is they have to believe that I can help them. And this comes through relationship, through a trusted relationship that we have to build in time. And then thirdly, I have to believe that I can help them at least as much, if not more, than they think I can help them.
Sure.
And so, I approach it that way. That makes an ideal client. I was with some friends at lunch recently. Steve Blair was one of the people at lunch. Steve said, "You don't really care what industry you're in, like who do you serve?" He said, I find that interesting. You don't index on a particular trade or an industry. How is that possible? And I explained to Steve, I hadn't really thought of it that way. I just think about it from the standpoint of, just your business is your canvas. Which is actually a quote I pull out of the Business Journal, the last page of the Business Journal, just this week. Your business is your canvas, and so for me, I'm wired to see what's missing or where gaps or where holes are in your business. My father was a career IBM guy, and he taught me to look for what's missing, which is a two-edged sword when you have children, I'll have to say. But so I don't really index on a practice, and on a trade. I told Steve, it doesn't really matter because of how I approach it. It's really very mechanical. And a lot of entrepreneurs, and I consider myself both an entrepreneur and an artist. Sometimes my business is my art. Sometimes sculpture is my art, but it's really an art form nonetheless. And there are mechanics to it, right? There are mechanics to how we create great art. And for me, in my practice, I use a very mechanical approach. None of this will be a surprise to you guys in your space, what you guys do. But for me, I focus on 4 areas of capital in a business and an entrepreneur's or business owner's journey. Human capital, for sure. Structural capital. I'll break these down to structural capital, social capital, and customer capital. And then how we attack those from a priorities perspective matters. Like we have to hit them in sequence. So from a human capital, that's my favorite, people and culture. Without people and culture, we don't really have much of an enterprise, for sure. So we want to work hard and be very intentional about that. And I have a whole, baked strategy around that, my favorite part. And from there, we want to go to structure, right? So what are your systems and operating, what's your operating model? I plug my Pinnacle operating tools right into that piece. You might be an EOS implementer or a scaling up or eMyth or the other 35 other operating systems that are out there. Whatever works for you is what you should use, and whatever works for anybody is what they should use. But for me, I love the Pinnacle tools, and I plug that right into the structural piece of things. And so for me, it is, starts with people, and then we're going to get very clear about purpose. So what's our mission, vision, values, whatever language you might like around that, but it's great clarity on why we're doing what we're doing. And then we're going to go to playbooks. Everything in the business is going to be documented and mechanically, which is one way that we built Tango Press that facilitated our pretty smooth exit. In fact, very smooth exit. So we built it from the beginning with a plan to exit, or certainly I did. My partner, John Ballantyne, amazing packaging guy, like savant in packaging. I think his plan is to stay in packaging. It's as long as his interests lie there. But I told him from the beginning, I hope you build this, but then I'm going to exit. And so to be able to do that, you have to document everything, sure. Systems and tools and processes. And so that's the structural piece, right? And so for me, that's playbooks inside of Pinnacle. And then we want to move to performance, which is really just the measures and metrics. What are your KPIs and your OKRs or whatever alphabet soup that you like? We're going to measure everything we can, put scoreboards up. And so it's super mechanical, right? And if we do all those things right, then our profits and our business sustainability really should follow. So that's the structural piece. From there, we go into, your brand, really your social capital. What's the status of your brand in the marketplace? And then lastly, your customer capital. What's your customer concentration? What are your customer issues, pinch points, pain points? How does your strategy align with the customer's needs? So it becomes super mechanical. Prioritization matters. I love some of the stuff that, Jeff, you shared over the years. You've got a great video on the website, I think, around doing like first things first, but it talks about de-risking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, that's also sort of a little bit of mechanical process of just trying to bring objective point of view to identifying the risks that will kill you the soonest and have the most likelihood of actually occurring, and then use that as a way of establishing priority.
Absolutely.
And very simple. It came out of reliability engineering, but yeah.
It's good.
So we were talking a little bit about prioritization. Mm-hmm. We mentioned the bit about risk management. Talk a little bit about how you think about that part of it.
Thanks. So once we understand what we're going to tackle, then really it is a prioritized approach, and so for me, if I have my PowerPoints up, I'd whip up a little triangle divided into 4 sections, vertically, or horizontal divides. The bottom one is certainly risk management. And if we can't de-risk the business, we have to protect anything that we have, So let's say we're going in and we already, we're acquiring a business, or we're a founder that's now saying, okay, what do I do? I'm at 5 or 8 or 20 million, and now what do I need to do? We want to make sure we protect every single thing that we have. Because every loss that we had, now we have to recoup just to get back to where we started. And so we don't want to lose any momentum or any client engagements or whatever that might be. So we want to de-risk first. Then I think we should go to strategy. And so once we understand, and this is how I approach my clients, we look at what the risks are, and then we look at strategy. If they don't have one, which a lot don't, then together we craft a strategy that really leverages and makes sense for them in the space that they're in, right where they're at. I get to meet them right where they are, which I love. And so once we have a strategy understood, then we can look at their business from an efficiency perspective. Now, a lot of entrepreneurs bring in an outside guide or somebody to come in and help them. They're like, yeah, I'm leaking money and you got to help me fix it. Like, we got to get more efficient with this. I'm like, is that the right place to start? Have we de-risked everything? Do we have the right strategy? And then once we do, then we can move into efficiency and we can find the gains that might be there. I have an expression about, we're not going to save our way to success, but we shouldn't be taking wads of $100 bills and throwing them on the floor. We just shouldn't, right? So there's probably rich opportunities for efficiency gains. And once we understand that, then we can grow. From then we have the base of the triangle solid, and we can grow. And quite frankly, if your mental picture is, holding that triangle in mind, underneath that whole thing is a big horizontal bar, which is people and culture. Right? The whole thing has to stack on top of people and culture. If the people and culture base is too small, the triangle falls over.
Yeah.
If the triangle's too big and the people and culture strategy bar is too thin, then it smashes the thing into the ground, right? So we got to start with people, and then we can build our way up the prioritization triangle.
Like what Drucker said, right? Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
I think so.
Now, it's an allegation that he said that in a meeting with Ford. There's no real proof that he said it, but it's been attributed to him for about 50 years.
I think I've quoted it once or twice.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not sure I cited Drucker. Maybe I gave somebody else the credit for that.
I think it's part of your point, though, is it's foundational. It's part of the strategy. You can't have an effective strategy if you don't have the culture and the people part right.
100% agree. Yeah, you have to get that piece right. And it has to be right for your business. I have a client that's in the blue collar trades and they're a builder. The people and culture strategy in the world of blue collar trades is way different than the people and culture strategy of another client that's in the M&A space.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing. At the center of it, though, is trust. Like the center, absolute core of it all is around trust. And if we can't build trust with our teams, with each other, then the whole thing it's a house of cards. It's going to fall apart for sure. And I've had that experience coming into organizations. When I came into Honeywell, for example, I mean, this is well established. This team had been in the works, actually had been in play for over 15 years. And a lot of the people were there on day one. And so there's a culture already that's established. And so we have to figure out culture is a byproduct of what you encourage and what you allow. And so what have we allowed that we might want to reel back in? This is back in the early era of non-gratuity policy at Walmart. We were selling technology into Walmart. And so there were some things we had to unwind, culturally that were okay for years and years that were no longer, approved. Mr. Sam would have had a hard time had he seen a few of these things that went down. So anyway, you're right about
Good
that.
stuff.
Yeah.
Earlier, you mentioned the smooth exit you had with Tango Press and how you guys always had that strategy in place. Why is it so important to have that exit strategy in place before you start growing, before you start building your business?
Man, that's a great question. So I probably ought to characterize my exit. I don't know that any exit is, like smooth.
100%. You sign a contract, it's done.
Listen, it worked and we got paid and, it funded. I think at the end of the day, it worked pretty well. For at least most of us, it worked pretty well. I think, foundational to that is where you start. So I'm a certified exit planning advisor. Another certification, another 40 hours of training, another 3-hour proctored exam. Shining my camera around my office, make sure nobody else is in there. Everything's cleared off my desk.
Under the table too.
The whole thing, the whole deal, right? And the whole premise of exit planning is that, like, if you, I've read the survey. The survey says the data is out, and it's 100% fact-based. Every founder leaves their enterprise. 100%. Every business owner leaves their business. They will leave. Now, you might die at your desk. You might, the big D's, death, divorce, disagreement. I mean, there's 5 big D's that are embedded in that. That might be why you leave. It might be planned. In my case, like Tango Press was planned, for me. And so if you know that, I'm just going to give it to my kids, or I'm just going to sell it to my kids. We have what was a $10 trillion wealth transfer happening now. I think it's up to like $14 trillion. I don't know what the latest is, but like there's a whole baby boomer generation of businesses that are going to have to transition somehow, some way. Those founders are going to exit. And the question is, on whose terms? Are they going to exit on their terms? Even if they give it to their kids, what are they giving to their kids? We talked earlier about owner dependence issues. If the whole business pivots around the matriarch, she started the business and the whole thing pivots around her and she exits, what's left? Right? So what's left? So from a founder's perspective, the coaching you guys give, I know is right up this line. Like, we have to document all that we do. So otherwise, there's really not much value in the enterprise. We really want to have enterprise value. And so if we're asking those questions, what are we doing? If this work we're doing right now, is it adding enterprise value? This decision we're about to make, is it adding enterprise value, or maybe foundation for enterprise value? That's okay too, right? We have to question. If we can't say for certain, we should probably question if it's a good idea, right? We want to make certain that we're building towards something that has great value so that it's transferable. Right. Otherwise, I mean, even to your kids, if you're going to give your business to your kids, you're going to start something great and you're going to say, hey, I want to give this thing to my kids. What do you want to give them?
Yeah, what does that look like?
What does it look like? A big pile of mess? Or is it, well documented, well refined, polished practice, the whole thing?
One of the tests for that, and I couldn't agree more, and there's some really alarming statistics around the number of failures on businesses that didn't have good succession planning, didn't have a good handoff, didn't have an exit strategy. But I think the key is, the good test is, can you walk away from it for a month or 2 months or 3 months? Can you take an extended vacation? What would happen to that business if you weren't there as the leader. And one of the things that was compelling to me early in my career, and it might have been a Tom Peters book, but he told the story of a general manager in a large operation that essentially worked himself out of a job. And they thought he was the laziest executive they had, but he'd done such a good job setting up that next echelon of leaders that he could work on the business and the strategy and wasn't crucial to the day-to-day tactics.
Love it.
And I think that's a lot of what you do or what you're trying to do with your clients. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%. Right on point. In fact, in my 4 years of running that executive as an interim executive out of that business out of Toronto, in 2024, I had negotiated a 30-day paid sabbatical. So I started that in 2021. We got to 2024. I said, hey, stopwatch, we agreed, I'm going to do this 30-day paid sabbatical. Here are the things to my founder. Here are the things you need to know about the CEO, just in case, here's some backup data in case you need it, whatever. See ya. Took my family to Italy, had an amazing time, came back over 4th of July weekend. So I stretched it out to 40 days. I mean, it was really well needed for me me and my family. I got back. I said, hey, where's the list of stuff? What do I need to take care of? He said, nothing. There's nothing. I said, oh, you resolved it all already while I was out? He said, no, nothing. There was nothing. And I threw my hands in the air. We're on a Zoom call because he's in Toronto. I threw my hands in the air and I said, yes, this is exactly what we're supposed to do.
Exactly right.
We're not supposed to be needed.
Yeah.
I mean, when we're needed, we're creating bottlenecks. We're creating, I think it's an error in the business. It's a flaw in the business, quite frankly. It has to go on without us.
You haven't empowered the people to have that right mix of authority and responsibility and accountability and sort of that self-propelled nature that they need in order to successfully run the business.
Yeah, you got it. Especially the accountability piece. I think when we build accountability into the systems and processes early, when we're talking about working through the tools and we're getting to the spot where who owns this, what's our RACI chart say? Like who really owns and who owes what? Let's get crystal clear about that. And then we hold each other accountable with good scoreboards, good metrics. It's a much easier game to play, for sure. Much easier game.
Are you an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur looking to get plugged into the ecosystem? We host a ton of events designed for education, inspiration, and collaboration, from weekly meetups to quarterly events like pitch competitions and annual events like our marquee event, the Startup Crawl, which is the largest startup party in Arkansas. Check out our event page on our website, sign up, and we'll see you there.
Both of what you guys are saying leads perfectly into my next question.
Of course,
a quote from your website, Steve. You actually coined it as your favorite quote is, "A leader is best when people barely know he exists. When his work is done and his aim fulfilled, they will say, we did it ourselves. The leader's role is to guide without forcing." So when you work with clients and you're advising people, how do you kind of balance being hands-on and helping them with guiding without forcing?
Oh man, that's a great question. There's not really one approach. One of the things that I think makes me different as a guide, an operating systems guide. And I say guide. Actually, when we first met, you asked me, you said, guide, what's that mean?
Yeah, I was like, you're a coach.
Aren't you a consultant or a
said,
coach?
You're a coach. You said, no, I'm a guide.
Yeah. And I had just come to a conversation maybe the evening before. I wrote about this, in fact, on LinkedIn. Just our conversation just triggered it the second time. I think about a coach as swimming analogy is a great one. The coach is outside the pool. He's whistling, he's yelling, he's got his, whatever he is doing to help you. I'm not a great swimmer. I have swimmers in my family. My wife's an amazing swimmer. So a coach, they're on the outside of the pool. They're doing their thing, but they're outside the pool. Key. Big key difference. A consultant, well, they'll come into your business, and I've certainly hired consultants in the past, and they were great, of great value. And we can have maybe two flavors of a consultant. One who you pay for advice and they give you the advice you need around a particular issue or topic, something that maybe they have expertise on. Or maybe you hire them to implement something for you, and SAP swap out or like whatever, they have experts that do the work, but then they leave, right? They give you something and then boom, they bolt. For me, I look at it as I'm in the pool, picking your feet up. Like your feet have to be higher. Like get your head down, get your chin down. Like you should be staring at the bottom of the pool, not looking up at where you're going. Whatever the swimmer coach, Anita yells at everybody on the side of the pool I get to watch. We're going to go up the trail together. Don't sit on those rocks. Why? Because that's where the rattlesnakes hide, right? Don't sit over there. Like sit on this side of the trail. It's in the sun. The rattlesnakes don't like the sun. They want to, or they do like the sun, or whatever the, the snake analogy is. I don't know. I'm not a snake tamer. I don't really know, but so I think that's a big piece of it. And with regards to the quote means something to me because, like I like to be recognized. I wouldn't do the kinds of things I do if I didn't want to have an important role in the game, for sure. And so when I left this last role that I had, I got phone calls for about a month, maybe a few trickled into 6 weeks, and then boom. They're on to the next. And, I miss a lot of those people. Not all of them, but I miss a lot of them, And that's the thing about that quote. Like there are systems that are living on without me. And I'm very proud of the work that we did as a team, right? But I don't need to be there. Like I want to get to the spot where I can go off and I get to step back and look and see what we've built together. And then boom, specifically to your point about how do you know when to do the work or when to get out of the way, it's engagement by engagement, task by task. If they don't have any experience in building meeting agendas, I sat with a client this morning building meeting agendas. What do you want to talk about? I don't know. What should we talk about? Well, what's important? And teasing out things that I think are pretty core functions of a leadership team. It's just they've never done it before. So I'm pretty hands-on. I'm the one taking notes. Tell me what you think. I'm going to collate it a little bit. I'm going to give it back to them. They're going to go through and polish it. I'm going to sit with them as they execute what really effectively is an L10 meeting, like out of EOS. I'll have my own version of an L10, call it an L11. I don't know what, but I'm going to sit with them in that first meeting, and I'm going to be the one who says, hang on a second. Should we park that or do we want to resolve that right now? If we can resolve it in 30 seconds, let's resolve it. If we can't, it goes on the parking lot list.
Sounds like it's pretty Socratic facilitation.
Absolutely.
Where you're asking the questions versus giving, mandates and directives. You're asking the questions to try to pull it out.
That's my ideal, Jeff. I can have to admit that I don't always get there. Sometimes I'm like, hey, you're about to step on a rattlesnake.
Exactly.
And I'll just snatch him up. Like, I'll just say, don't do that. Like, that's not a good, hey, Steve, will you look at this email I want to send to the whole team? And I look at it and I'm like, what is your objective? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to communicate here? Because I'm not sure I'd send this one, please don't send that, please don't do that. So it is, it really is, but it's situation and leader dependent. What is it that they're trying to achieve and what do they want to accomplish? And, I have another analogy. If I were drawing cartoons, we'd have cartoons on the board here, but I think about issues as grass fires in a residential neighborhood. I don't know, mental image. And I've used this one for years and years. I'd ask my team, it sounds like we have a grass fire. Is it in the ditch? Or is it in our backyard? Or is it about to hit our garage? Like, where are we in this? Oh, that thing's way out. I can just see it on the horizon. It's like throwing up smoke. Good. I get to step back and let them really work on it. If, on the other hand, other end of the spectrum, it's lapping at the cedar siding on the back of our garage, I'm going to step in. Like, we're gonna lean in hard and make sure that we're calling the shots, right now when we need to call the shots. Yep.
Yeah. I like all the imagery.
Visuals, man. Gotta have the
they
visuals.
Work.
So what does winning look like for you? And this is kind of a different, ball game than in your previous roles, Honeywell, or whatever else. You're kind of making your own landscape, so to speak, here. What does winning look like for you day to day?
Yeah, thanks.
And then into the future.
That's evolved over the years. In 2020, this year I got married. Sorry, 2020. In 2000, the year I got married, in the summer, I had convinced Nikki, with her own interest, to go back to grad school and work on her master's degree. And then we got married in September, and then in October, I quit my job. And I was racing sports cars at the time before we got married, which I couldn't really afford to do, which was a good reason for me to stop being married and being accountable financially to one other human being, which is a good thing. Just, gentlemen, it's a good thing. If you're not married, it's a good thing. And but I thought, man, what am I going to do? Like, what do I want to do with my days? And so I started a motorsports sales and marketing consultancy. And Nikki calls that my 5 years of being self-unemployed, which I think winning to me at that time looked like, how much time do I get to spend at the track with my racing buddies? Can I come up with a product idea? Because I made Lexan windshields for vintage Z cars at the time. What can we come up with? What's going to happen here? So winning was, how long can I kick this can down the road before I have to act like a grown up and go do something serious? My dad then once said to me, this is during my corporate career, he said, hey, he accused me of being a workaholic. I was like, I beg your pardon. What? He's like, and he started citing examples of my behavior. It was like right out of the book. I'm like, oh man. He said, look, all this money you're chasing, all these pursuits, you can't buy peace of mind. And so that sort of tripped a switch in me about what does winning look like. Add some kids to the mix, that it starts to change and morph. For me, now back to the concept of mechanics and mechanical, for me, it's about value creation for my clients. Like in my practice, what winning looks like is adding $500 million, which is my personal goal, $500 million of enterprise value to my clients' portfolios, clients, plural, portfolios. Right? To me, it's a measure. Like, where do we start? I mean, even if it's back of the napkin valuation, some market number, you're a 2x multiple on EBITDA, whatever. Let's just draw a line in the sand. Let's work together and let's measure again. And what value creation have we added? And then this goes on my stack. So winning looks a lot like that. And I love working with people that I choose, not people that I have to work with. So that's a big piece of winning. At my age and at my stage of career, I have some pretty strict policies, one of which, quite frankly and candidly, is a no a-hole policy.
Yeah, it's a good policy.
I just don't.
Life's too short, right?
It's too short. I have young kids too. I have a lot of people to feed they'll be on the payroll for a long time. Yeah. At my age, a really long time, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. So I need to earn a living. Like, it's important that I add value to my family. But I get to choose, It's like, I just don't think it's going to work for us. My schedule's too full. I just don't see that one, working.
Is there an optimal number of clients with that in mind that kind of makes the whole system work out well for you?
Yeah, I think from a time, because I really do like to jump in the ditch.
Yeah.
I really do spend a lot of time in the ditch. I like it in the ditch, quite frankly. I can get about 8 clients on my roster.
Yeah.
I think maybe I can get to 10, but boy.
That's kind of a manageable portfolio.
I think 10 gets to be pretty squishy, and they all come in at different stages and at different times, which I think is great. I have some clients that are pretty polished. They have an executive team or a leadership team. They have some rhythm and some cadence, and they're doing some things. My front end time on that client is super light compared to a client who's, never had an effective leadership meeting before.
Do you build a stable? I mean, you've got the system, you've got your way of doing it. Do you bring on 1099s or additional consultants to grow beyond that 8 or 10, or do you just keep it there to say, no, I just want it to be me?
Yeah, I do. I do use 1099 support right now, so in the exit planning world, I like to think about it from the standpoint of building a team.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to focus on the exit planning. I mean, we're here, Startup Junkie.
Sure.
These are early stage ventures, and that's not my point. But you asked a great question earlier about, why should I think about it now?
Yeah.
I just got my thing launched. I'm at $3 million in revenue, or I've got 100,000 clients engaged, or whatever my circumstance would be. I think we have to recognize that each client comes at a different time. Some clients are very heavy front end loaded, some are less. So depending upon the sequence and the timing of things, I get to do that, and I bring in resources, whatever that might be. I've got a great data and analytics guy. If we're going to do a bunch of supply chain stuff, I'm not the data and analytics guy. So I've got a great resource to build dashboards. He uses Power BI and creates really cool dashboards that everybody, democratizes data, really is the language that he would use. And then whatever we need, marketing, CMO type resources, CFO type outsourced resources, whatever the client needs.
But sure. You build that stable, essentially the growth plan for you to be able to handle 8 or beyond 8 or 10 is you just keep adding to those subject matter experts that you need in order to be able to hit the client demands. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a path probably for this, should I decide to take it that way, where I bring in junior associates or somebody who's, in the space or wants to be in the space that I'm in, and they want to start handling client engagements. I have a lot of people that ask, hey, I'm doing this thing and I want to go quit my day job and go out and start the new thing, whatever the new thing is. And I actually stole a John Maxwell reference where he calls it 3 R's. You've probably heard it or used it before. The first one is, look, you're thinking about quitting your job, your day job that, funds the machine, keeps the machine running at home or whatever. And you're going to go do your thing. First thing you have to do is you have to do what's required of you, the first R, like pay your bills. Like if you can do this thing and you can pay your bills, then that's a good place to start. And the second R is, can you get a return from this? It's one thing to break even, right? My 5 years of being self-unemployed as a reference. It's one thing to keep a mortgage paid and to break even. Maybe reach into savings, maybe replenish the savings, kind of depends on the ebb and flow of deals. But if you can do this thing and get a good return, well then, okay, now we have something to talk about. And I know, Jeff, you've turned people back out. I heard a story recently, actually, it was attributed to you. Someone came and said, hey, I want to do this thing. And you said, no, I think now's not the right time. For whatever reasons, that your product, your offering's not mature enough, you're not ready financially, whatever the mechanics of that might be. And then Maxwell's last R is it rewarding? Can it be rewarding? And if we had a Venn diagram, more pictures, if we had a Venn diagram and we could show the overlap of those three, I can do what is required of me, I get a great return, and it's rewarding. Man, that middle spot, that's sweet. That's a sweet spot to be as someone wired to do, kind of your own thing. Yeah, it's a good spot to be.
So we kind of talked about what success looks like for you. What does the next 5 years look like for you?
Wow. Well, let's see. 5 years, I have a 13-year-old. So 5 years from now, she'll be 18. And so that'll be a new journey, a new chapter, for all of us, I'm sure.
These are going to be completely unexciting years for you.
I have some things to do,
Having had 4 that went through that 13 to 20 kind of.
My oldest will be out of university, hopefully, and I would say off the payroll, but whatever. She could ask me for $1,500 tomorrow, and I'm like, I'd be writing a check so fast that my wife would be snatching me up by the hair.
Yep.
So there's a lot there of opportunity there. I have our middle child, our son. He's an amazing entrepreneur. I get to spend a lot of time with him, which is the most fun. He's a leather worker, right? Mm-hmm. And so he does custom leather goods, branded custom leather goods, right? So he got invited to the Amazium to be part of their maker market, teen maker market.
That's great. Yeah.
The staff fell in love with him, and he made 600 custom leather coasters as gifts at their Ungala.
Wow.
They hired him to do that. Then they hired him to do 30 custom like Moleskine journal covers, like these journals that you're using, leather cover with their logo on the front, board of directors across the bottom. Hope Cancer Resources just hired him to do more journal covers. The kid's brain, I don't know how many 17-year-olds talk about cost of goods sold. I'm like,
that's great.
I love it. So I hope 5 years I get to spend some time with him doing that. As far as my practice goes, the great news, the great fun for me, I started in this practice looking for a business to buy. So I suspect that within the next 5 years, I'll do an acquisition or I'll partner with somebody that makes sense where my skills, experience fit with what they need and where they're going. Certainly growth-minded, which goes back to one of your earlier questions. I didn't put that on my list. But if an organization asks me to help and they're not aimed at growth, we're probably not going to be a good fit. I can maybe recommend someone else. But my brain works on what are we doing to grow this? Where are we taking it? Where are we going? I did have an entrepreneur say to me once, no exaggeration, whoa, we make enough money. And honestly, guys, look, it's okay if that's your thing. And I'm not judging. At the moment, though, I have to be honest, I was frozen. I just sat there like waiting for the punchline or something. But that was it. That was the story. And I thought, well, this is going to be a one and done project, which it was. It was great. We made great art together. It was good work, right? They took it and ran with it, and they're using it now. It's all good, but it's just not a good fit. So 5 years from now, I suspect I'll be partnered with somebody, or I'll have made an acquisition, or worst case scenario, which is not bad, I still get to do this all day, which I really do love to do. It's super fun to be in the ditch.
Yeah. Caleb, you want to land the plane?
So the way we kind of like to wrap up these conversations is and to invite our guests to hop in their time machine, go back, whether that's back to the year 2000 or, back, I guess it's really not that far back to go at the front end of Crestline, but go back in time, whatever point you choose with the accumulated knowledge that you have now. What advice would you give your younger self?
Great question. I think I'd go back to something I said earlier that my dad said. He just said, look, you can't buy peace of mind. I watched Eric Howerton's podcast. Eric's been a friend for years, and I really appreciate him a lot, his energy and just who he is. He's just always the same guy. You can count on him to show up 100%. And one of these things he said was, you just can't do this for money. And in the moment, I heard nails on a chalkboard because, I'm a capitalist dog and, I like money. I like to make it and give it into the community and spend it and make the machine run, But I think Eric was on point with what he was saying. And that's the same thing my dad was saying, really. You just can't buy peace of mind. So hang out with people that you like, do work that you like. I have friends that are miserable in their jobs and I just don't understand it. I can't coach them out of it. There's just, they're grown men, grown women, they just are miserable in their work. And I'm like, man, life is so short. Take the shot, get out and do something. Just go somewhere else if you don't have the entrepreneurial spirit. Just go someplace else where you don't feel like the burden of all that over the top of you. So I guess that's about the best I could do.
Pretty good advice. Well, if any of our listeners want to learn more about you or about Crestline, where should they go?
Man, they can hit me up on Crestline Leaders for sure, crestlineleaders.com. LinkedIn is great. I'm on LinkedIn, Steve Toth, or Steve at crestlineleaders.com for sure.
Awesome. We'll make sure to link those down in the description. So check out Steve's LinkedIn, his website. Also, make sure to follow the Startup Junkies podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Steve, thanks so much for coming in today.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for coming on. That was fantastic. Thank you.
Like I said at the beginning, there's lots of great entrepreneurs in this community, so I'm honored that you would even have me in the chair. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share with a friend. Subscribe and review because it matters to us and we want to hear from you. If you're interested in learning how to work with us, check out the information below. See you next week.